I was just so excited, and they talked a little bit more about the job offer, and I'm like, yeah, I accept. I'm just so excited to be here. Hung up, called my mom and my boyfriend again, and I just like, I got the job. They're like, really? I'm like, yes, I got the freaking job. And it was just so exciting. And for like the next week, I was just on cloud nine through the moon. I was just ear to ear smiling every day.
Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get life-changing jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And that includes my very special guest today, Amy, who is trying to make it as a photographer and not succeeding, so she had to become an Uber driver. When she found my course, she hustled very, very hard and ended up getting an entry-level position, making $57,000 a year in her first digital marketing job. I'm very excited to share her story with you. It's very inspiring. Thanks for being here, Amy.
Thank you, Seth. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your current job that you have right now?
Yeah, so I'm a digital marketing specialist at Adlucent. We are an independent agency that just got acquired by Barkley OKRP, actually. And we manage ad spend for mostly enterprise or mid-market retail businesses. I personally work with a team that manages Google ad spend for one mid-market client. And as I gain more experience, I'll be working on hopefully other bigger accounts as well.
That's so great. And well, you're already working with, sounds like with a big agency with some big clients. What is the job remote? Is it in-house?
It's fully remote, so it's based out in Austin, and I'm working on my computer in Colorado.
That's fantastic. And one of the things you'd mentioned to me was, you got hired just from what you've done in the course. Are you finding that, you're working on, sounds like a big client. Are you getting support? Is there some type of education or training in the program?
Yeah, so we actually have a really big training program. It's, I think, pretty unique to the company. So they basically hire in classes a few times a year. And so I was hired alongside five other pretty much beginner digital marketing specialists as well. And they took us through a whole 10-week training, basically teaching us from the ground up how to do digital marketing essentially.
That's incredible. And you're being paid while you're being trained, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The full salary, everything.
That's amazing. And so, well, we'll get more into, I guess, like how you got hired, because I do want to know more about that training process and what you learned beyond what you had presented in the interview. But this sounds like, it's a great salary, remote, really big company. So of course, everyone wants to know is like, well, how did you get the job? What was going on in your life when you first heard about my course in digital marketing?
Yeah. So initially, I about this time last year, I was trying to make it as a photographer slash YouTuber. And I think one mistake that I made was trying to, start a, creative business for myself without having a side income and trying to make money out of a passion project. And I ended up just really just burning out of that. And so eventually I had to sort of leave that behind, at least for now. And I started doing food deliveries, mainly through Uber, to kind of make ends meet and to make rent every month. And after a few months of doing Uber, I eventually, I wanted a real job at some point. So I eventually found your course on YouTube through Shane Hummus, which I think a lot of people have mentioned before. And I could immediately tell after watching your other testimonials and yeah, just watching all of your testimonials, just how genuine you are and just how like legit this whole thing is. And so I saved up for about another month and a half, bought the course, and then over the course of 5 months, I took the course, completed it, started interviewing, and then eventually landed at the job I'm at now.
That's awesome. I love that. And you mentioned something about doing a creative endeavor. And that's, I mean, I could do a whole other video on that about, creative. I think it's like we're very like lucky at this time. You have people telling you to follow your passion. Like our grandparents Nobody ever said to that to your grandparents. Like it was not even a possibility. But at the same time, people will go to college and major in these random things, or they'll, in your case, I know you majored in something very, it seemed like sensible for your family, but you had this passion of photography. And it's very difficult for most people to focus on their creative love when you don't have financial stability.
Exactly.
Especially if now that financial pressure gets transferred to your passion, because the thing you used to love to do for your self-expression and your creativity now is mixed up with like, I got to make money, and it's very stressful, right?
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So that's another reason I like digital marketing, though, again, is that you have so many options now with the skill set, is that you could get a full-time job, you could do freelance work, and then you could work on, your photography on the side. Plus, now you learn digital marketing. If you ever want to do photography, you can use digital marketing to promote it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's just so great that it's such a transferable skill. And when I even talk to my friends and they're trying to start businesses, I'm like, I could help you with that if I wanted to, or like I could see how I can help you there or things like that. And it's just really cool that it's just such a versatile skill and just so useful. And so I'm really excited that I chose this path.
Oh, yeah, me too. So getting into the job process and so you started the course, you didn't know anything about digital marketing. You did what's in the course. You generated tell us, just, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, what did you do? You generated your experience, and then like kind of take us through learning digital marketing, generating your experience, and then getting into the application process.
Yeah, so when I initially started your course, I was mostly focused on SEO actually. I just in case if I ever wanted to start my own blog on the side, I thought it would be really useful for that. And so I completed the course mostly focusing on SEO, but I did set up my resume and I did create experience for PPC as well, but I mostly focused on SEO. And so I started applying to jobs and I noticed how, and I would apply to PPC as well, but I noticed how for every one interview I would get with SEO, I would get like 4 interviews for PPC back. And on LinkedIn, I had a bunch of recruiters asking me about my PPC skills. And I think maybe only 1 or 2 asked me about SEO. So after a while, I was like, maybe I should go back and go through PPC. So I went back through the course actually, and I just looked at the basics of PPC. I didn't go through any of your advanced topics at all, just the basics. And with the very next application that I sent in, I got that interview, went through that whole process, and I got the job that I'm in right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just to unpack some of what you said, and for people who aren't familiar, SEO is search engine optimization. It's making changes to a company's website and off the website to try to get the site to rank higher in Google's organic free search results. So that for long-term strategy, this is incredibly valuable for businesses. But the reason I'd say there's a bit more demand for paid PPC, pay per click, is this is where companies pay money right now to show up at the top of Google in an ad and get clicks to their website immediately. It's very quick. The data comes in very quickly. It's very immediate. And companies are even if the economy is slow, they're still spending money on this. And they need people like Amy and my students to manage this ad spend. And as you can see, there's a real lack of talent and people who understand how to do this, even at a basic level. So I think it's really interesting, that perspective of that. Yeah, once you focus on PPC, you were getting a bit more interest. Again, I don't want to discount SEO because I do have students who love SEO and do well with it, but you were able to get this interview. And so tell us about that interview. How did it go? What did you talk about? What kind of questions did they ask you?
Yeah, so this was, I think, kind of a unique interview process. I think typically you go through maybe like 3 interviews, maybe 4. This one was, I think, a 5-step interview process. So after I sent in my resume, I actually ended up taking a personality test, as well as kind of a IQ sort of test as well. Then I had my first interview, which was very high level. They talked about the values of the company and how I fit in with those values, as well as just kind of high level what the job is. After that, I did a take-home assignment or a take-home test where I got to kind of apply what I learned about digital marketing, and answered some of their questions. And after that, I had two back-to-back 1-hour interviews, and they asked mostly personality questions as well. This is a very entry level, completely entry level job where they train you from the ground up. So they didn't really expect you to have a lot of digital marketing experience. So I think that's why they didn't ask too much of that. But yeah, overall, it was more personality questions and seeing if you're really more of a culture fit for the company, I would say.
That's really interesting. And, this is really good to hear for people because, people often ask me if digital marketing is saturated or the job market is saturated. I'm saying, I've been teaching this since 2016 and this is still happening, which is great. They're like, literally, I understand their methodology. You're an investment for them, essentially. They want to really get to know the cultural fit and I want to dig in and see your trustworthiness level and like, are you a person that they can invest the time into training because you're going to produce money for them. You're going to be managing big accounts for them. You're a huge value. But I think it's also awesome, again, that they would train you. I'm curious, what kind of questions did they ask you? You said they asked you some digital marketing questions.
Yeah, so they asked um, some like very basic, like what to calculate return on ad spend or to um, look at a Google sheet assignment. Your Google sheet assignment was actually came in clutch during this assignment. So there was one question I had to ask. I had to basically set up an entire campaign and talk about why I set up certain things, certain settings a specific way. And there was another question where I had to basically analyze a huge Google sheet and come up with a few answers on why performance was this way or that.
Yeah, that's let's not downplay that because again, I tell people it's an entry level position. They want to make sure you're a cultural fit, but that is huge that they ask you those things, because that's the hard skills I talk about. They want to know your soft skills, your communication, your personality. They also want to see you have an understanding. And it's possible that, maybe they took someone fresh out of college who doesn't know anything about Google. It's possible, but obviously you knowing what you did know got you hired very quickly. I'm just curious, you were hired with other people. Did you chat with any of your colleagues about what their previous experience had been when they got hired into this training program?
Yeah, so pretty much everyone else did not have any previous digital marketing experience except for one person who I think had about 8 years of experience beforehand. But in our company, we deal with a lot of large enterprise clients. And so I think that that's part of the reason why that person came in kind of in an entry level role. But yeah, it was kind of a classroom setting, and every single day we would all have the opportunity to chat with one another and just build like a really cool community. And that was really awesome.
That's so great. And of course, it's great to get validation of the fact that, again, these people did not have a lot of previous experience.
Mhm.
Which is interesting to say that they would rather, it's interesting that they're choosing to hire people without previous experience versus perhaps people that have developed bad habits or didn't have a teachable attitude.
Mhm.
There's a lot, I guess it's a very good sign for people who are out there looking for their first digital marketing job. I also think I'm going to be doing some videos about people ask me like, how do I start a digital agency? And my advice is usually like, don't start with a job because like you just started from nothing. Now you're working with clients that are spending a lot of money on Google ads
Mhm.
and you're getting mentorship and training. So now you're just accelerated yourself to this high level of being able to manage and speak with and handle a high level client. And if you ever do decide to freelance now, you actually have that confidence versus if you just start out and you're like, I'm going to build an agency from scratch and I'm going to call, a Fortune 500 company. They're not going to listen to you. But now you have this experience. So that's a little bit of a side note. That's kind of where, one of the topics I'm thinking of talking about on the channel. Because again, you're just at the very beginning of your career. It's very exciting. So, what was it like for you when you got the job offer? What did it feel like? What was your experience?
Oh my gosh. It was funny because I waited for an entire week after my last interview and they sent an email being like, Hi, we want to call you to talk about, like if you got the job or not. And I'm like, you guys aren't going to call me if I didn't get the job, right? Like that would just be pretty mean, you know? And so basically from that email until I got the call, I was like freaking out. I like called my mom, I called my boyfriend, and I was like, I think I got the job. And they're like, don't freak out too much right now. And I was like, you're right, you're right, you're right. Like maybe they will say you didn't get it. But once I actually got that phone call, all of the adrenaline kind of ran away. Um, and so they're like, oh yeah, super excited to tell you that you got the job. And I'm like, thank you. I was just so excited. And they talked a little bit more about the job offer. And I'm like, yeah, I accept. I'm just so excited to be here. Um, and then hung up, called my mom and my boyfriend again. And I just like, I got the job. They're like, really? Hell yeah. I'm like, yes, I got the freaking job. And it was just so exciting. And yeah, I called my entire family and I was just like, for like the next week, I was just on cloud nine through the moon. I was just ear to ear smiling every day.
That's so great. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. That's awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. And yeah. And were you surprised by the salary offer?
I actually knew what the salary was beforehand.
Hmm.
And so I wasn't actually very surprised by it. But I did expect it to be like up to 57,000. I didn't actually expect it to be 57,000. But the fact that they did actually give me the salary that they said, that was just that just felt really, really great.
That's fantastic. And this company, this is a good company to work for. If they're paying you this much out of the gate, training you, they're smart because they know that as you get more experience, recruiters are going to be coming after you and
Mhm.
you're going to be loyal to them because they trained you and they're paying you right. And I'm going to ask you more about the job in a second, but I forgot to ask you something, which was, oh, you told me recruiters were reaching out to you before you got this job in SEO and PPC. Did that surprise you?
Actually, a little bit. I heard in previous testimonials that people would reach out to them, but I did not expect to be reached out to nearly as much, especially because um, I don't know, like I just started, and I think I set up my LinkedIn profile pretty well, thanks to tips from you and other people in the course. And I think that that really helped. But I was mostly surprised by the volume of recruiters that were reaching out to me. It was like one to two a week, mostly when I was
Yeah.
applying. That was very surprising to
It's a
me.
great feeling. And it does happen. And you did set up, I looked at your LinkedIn, you set it up properly. I think I actually sent your LinkedIn to one other student as an example, where I was like, do it like this. Because
Awesome.
people weren't following the directions in the course. But it just speaks to the demand for the skill set that's still out there. And yeah, I'm really happy for you. And once you started, like what's it like your daily life compared to when you were driving Uber? Like how do you feel every day?
Yeah, so it's been really nice. So because we're based out in Austin and I live in Colorado, we have a 1 hour difference, and so I actually start my days at 8 o'clock, which is actually ideal for me. I'm definitely an early bird, and so every single day I log on every morning, and I'm just genuinely excited to like meet with my coworkers and talk about the account, or when I was in training, chatting with my other cohorts, seeing how they're doing. And yeah, as long as I'm like getting my work done throughout the day, everything is, I don't know, everything just goes really smoothly. I have a lot of flexibility. If I need to take a lunch break, I can take a lunch break. Just let the rest of my team know. If I have an emergency, I can just let people know, and they're just very lenient, and it's just really nice.
That's fantastic. And are they starting to get you into actually managing the account or doing tasks on these bigger accounts now?
Yes, they're. I just got out of training about 2 weeks ago, and now they're having me manage ad spend, do site links, and pretty soon I'll be talking to the clients as well. Maybe even starting next week. So that's very exciting.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You're on your way. You're getting, it's like you're getting paid to learn this stuff. And I think this sounds like a good agency, so that like I think, you know, you could even, you know, grow at that agency versus having to pivot to another agency. Um, you just have a lot of options. And I'm sure it's more enjoyable to be working in your bedroom or in your house than driving an Uber all day.
100%, yeah. And I will say with this agency, I know quite a few agencies, they people tend to there tends to be a pretty high turnaround. But with this agency, people tend to stay for like 2 to 5 years at a time. And so I think that they do a really good job, keeping employees happy. And um, I'm really, really happy at this company. I think I'll stay for a long time, actually.
I can see that. And this is, guys, what I try to explain to you is like, it's like when you see these, you know, basketball or football players or baseball players, was it Shohei Ohtani just signed a huge deal with the Dodgers? It's like, well, they're paying him a ton of money, so he's going to stay for a long time. It's the same with these agencies. When she said there's a high turnover rate, it's not because, oh, people, you know, are, you know, getting fired left and right. It's because no, because once you have the skill set, other companies want you, and so you're going to get poached, and there's going to be recruiters coming. And that happened to me at one of my jobs. Remember, I was working there, and this recruiter was relentless with me. She's like, you got to meet with my employer, you got to meet with me. And this happens. So agencies that are not smart, they don't give the raise and the performance incentives, and then employees leave. Good agencies like this one are like, okay, yeah, we got to treat our people right, and they'll stay for 2 to 5 years, which is a long time. Because
Mhm.
you know, typically you can actually look at the data. You will get a bigger pay bump if you go to another company. But if you have a smart company like this, it sounds like they'll give you appropriate raises, and you'll stay there. So this is, yeah, I think all good stuff about the industry. Before we wrap up, you had mentioned to me just, you know, I think this is good advice for anybody, whether you're in the course or not. During the interview and application process, you mentioned like, what was your mindset like while you were applying for jobs? Were you bulk applying? Were you kind of panicked, or like, what were you thinking and feeling? And was anything guiding you as you did that?
Yeah, so during the application process, I would say was probably the hardest part about this whole process for me. And so there were a lot of moments where I felt like really discouraged and I don't know, just like kind of sad, a little bit run down. But I'm really into law of attraction, and I um, I know that when you really own what you know, and when you remind yourself to really be proud of where you are and like what you've done, and like to be someone who like took the initiative to get a course, complete the course, learn all of these things, like that's huge. And like not everyone does that. And if you're the type of person who has done that, that's something to really be proud of. And so whenever I would feel discouraged, I would listen to uh, a bunch of your other testimonials and just remind myself that, all of these other people have done this. Like I should be able to do this too. And on top of that, just like meditating on the fact that like, hey, like I should be proud of myself. I can be proud of myself. And again, owning what I know and just being like, I know I'm going to be able to get here. And just having that confidence in myself, I think is what really is what got me this job essentially, because that energy that you bring into the interviews, they feel that confidence, they feel that joy in you, and they feel that passion in you, and they just have so much more confidence in you when you have that confidence in in yourself. So I would say that.
Absolutely. And were you listening to anyone in particular, any particular authors?
Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I I don't talk about it too much in this channel. I may talk about it more, but I'm also a big, really into. I mean, the term law of attraction has been a bit overused. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't understand it, but Abraham Hicks, I think it's very detailed. And when I try to teach my students and in my interview section in the course, what I'm trying to get you mentally is into a place where you're actually having fun while you're interviewing, where you are present, where you are acknowledging all the things she said, where you're appreciating what you've done, the fact that if you're in the course, If you even taken the initiative yourself, even if you're not in the course, to try to learn new skill sets and get into a new career, you should pat yourself on the back. It's not something everybody does. And that it is true. The vibe you send out, it's not, if you're not into this type of stuff, you could just say it's your thought process. Think of it very linearly. If you're thinking positively, if you're thinking confidently, people can tell. So that's all we're saying. And yeah.
And I will say for my last two back-to-back interviews, I actually didn't prepare for them like at all. I was just in such like a high, and I was just like, no, I'm gonna get it. I was so confident in myself that I was gonna do well, and I think I did really well in those interviews. I ended up getting the job. So I just think that really goes to show that like when you're in a good when you have a good mindset and when you are feeling confident, like it just shows through. And like the way that you speak, the way that you present yourself is just on another level, and people see that and they love it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I didn't think I'd delve into this much, but it's coming up for me to say is that like when you thought about the future, you weren't like fixated, like it's just like you just kind of had a general feeling of goodness, right? Like you weren't like, I have to get this job or else. It was
Yeah.
like, how did you end up, like, how did you get into that positive state? Just by feeling pride in yourself, being okay with whatever happens, like,
Yeah. I would say that for every step in the interview process, I kind of took on the mindset that, like I just want to feel proud of myself for this interview. If I can, just do the best that I can for this interview and feel like I did my best on it, then I will feel happy with whatever the outcome is. And that led me to the next interview and the next interview and the next interview. And that also just made me feel so much more calm when I approached it, because I accepted whether or not I was going to get it or not. Because even if I didn't, I could still learn from that experience. And it was still valuable to me no matter what.
this is gold, guys. This is exactly what works in every area of life. Every area of life. It's this unattachment to the outcome and just an appreciation of what you're doing in that moment. I get a lot of people writing to me, and it's very normal. I was like this when I was younger. Who'll be like, I got through this. Let's say you did go through this 4-stage interview, and this does happen to people, and you don't get the job. It's a very important moment for you where you're going to either take that and be upset about it and be like, oh, it was a waste of time and this stinks, blah, blah, and go negative. You have complete power over your response. And the empowering thing to do would be to say, okay, yeah, I acknowledge that you're bummed you didn't get the job, but be proud of how far you got. Because that's what I try to teach my students about the interview process. Like, first of all, you have to understand you're not going to get the first interview. You might, but you don't want to think like, oh, if I don't get it, I'm going to be. And some people actually have had younger students who are like 18 or 19 who've never, they're brand new to the job market. And they will literally get an interview, which by the way, in and of itself is a huge accomplishment, and not get the job and then be like, oh, this doesn't work. Or something. No, this is, you're very immature in the process. You have to understand it takes time. And then every interview you do, you're growing, and it's bringing you to the right job for you. And you just don't want to get fixated on like this, I have to have this job. That's a vibe. Think about that if you're on a date or something, you're with someone. Like the best way to be on a date is like, I'm enjoying this, being with this person, and let's see how it goes. And I, hope it works out. But if the person's like, we're going to get married, on the first date, and they have that like intense vibe, it's not a good vibe. You have to have this kind of open, appreciative vibe of the process. And I think you expressed it really well, because you don't know what's happening cumulatively. Like I even had to be reminded of this for myself from one of my coaches. It was like, you don't know what those 3 failed interviews, you may have learned or grown in such a way that then the 4th interview works, and it's different for every person. So have that appreciation. I have people who say like, yeah, I've been on 4 interviews. I'm like, dude, you got to celebrate those interviews, man. Don't be so fixated on the outcome. Like, be happy, be proud. There's college graduates who send out 100 applications, can't get 1 interview. You got 4. So I hope that helps some people watching. And if you feel free to comment about this topic if you want us to talk a little bit more about it, because there's a lot to it. And I think you're a great example of what's possible when you have the skills plus that intentionality and that appreciation of yourself. So yeah, thanks for sharing all this with us, Amy. Can people reach out to you on LinkedIn if they have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely can. I will say, do send me a little message on the side saying where you're from, just so I know. But yeah, you're absolutely welcome to message me with anything.
Yeah, and guys, you should do that with all my students. Like, give people context. Also, be patient and respectful. Don't like message them and say, "Here's my phone number. Call me. I have questions." Be like, they're, as you can see, Amy's working. My students are all working, and they're very generous with their time. But I will leave your LinkedIn link below the video. And is there, as we wrap it up, is there anything you'd like to say to me or to anybody watching the interview?
I would just say thank you so much for like your generosity and for um, giving so much into this course to like it's completely life changing and um, you provide so much for honestly like not a lot of money and it's I I have just been very emotional in many times throughout this entire process of just being incredibly grateful that there are people out there who um, give so much to change so many people's lives. So I just really want to say thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks for, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I moved. And I appreciate hearing that because it reminds me why I do it. Because sometimes, especially because everything's virtual, it's like, you kind of, it's like I've connected with so many people over the years, but I haven't met too many people in person. So even when you share that openly, I can like feel the impact and, gives me more like inspiration for like, yeah, this is why I want to keep adding to the course and keep sharing this opportunity.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy for you and thank you.
Yeah,
Um, and do you have anything you'd like to say to anybody watching the interview who's thinking about the course?
do it. Like it's worth it 100%. Like everyone else says on all the other testimonials, it's the real deal. You won't regret it. I'm taking, even with the training program in my company, I'm taking a lot of what I learned from this course into what I'm doing in my accounts. So it's 100% worth it. You're going to learn so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amy. Thanks for being so open and sharing yourself and making yourself available. And yeah, I'm really happy for you. I'm excited. So we'll probably do a follow-up in 6 months or a year. I'm excited to see where you're going to be at that point. It was great chatting with you, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, sounds good.